McGovern, Pam Bondi to release Epstein files. But what unfolded next exposed something far bigger than a congressional dispute. It revealed a crack in the system, a moment where promises of truth collided with a sudden, uncomfortable silence. And if you listen closely to how fast the tone changed, you start to realize this wasn't just a procedural vote. It felt like watching a curtain being yanked shut right as the public leaned in to finally see what's behind it. Because for years, the public was told the Epstein files were coming. That transparency was guaranteed.
Noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Madam Chair, I have another amendment to the rule. I move the committee make an order amendment number 50 to H.R. 3633, offered by Representative Khanna, which would require the Attorney General to preserve and release any records related to Jeffrey Epstein. Madam Chair, on February 21st, 2025, President Trump's own Attorney General, Pam Bondi, said on Fox News, the Epstein client list was sitting on her desk, quote, right now to review, end quote. Kash Patel, Trump's FBI director, said during his confirmation hearing that he would do everything, if confirmed, to make sure the American people knew, quote, the full weight of what happened, end quote. Patel, who now leads the FBI, said on the Benny Johnson show that the FBI was hiding the Epstein client list. Donald Trump Jr., the president's own son, tweeted out, and I quote, show us all the Epstein client list right now. Why would anyone protect those scumbags? Ask yourselves this question, and then the answer becomes very apparent, end quote. And now, forgive me, but suddenly these same people are telling us there's nothing to see here. Trump is posting that we should all just move on. Well, I want to know what the hell is in these files. And I think we all want to know why Trump is suddenly changing his tune and is so desperate to sweep this under the rug. But you know what? This also gets at his credibility. This is about trust. Republicans said, trust us, vote for us, and we will release these files. And here we are. They are backtracking. They said they aren't going to cut Medicaid, and they did. They said they wouldn't add to the deficit and debt. They exploded both. They said that they stand with law enforcement. They won't even hang a plaque honoring officers for their heroism on January 6th. They talk about law and order and can't even condemn the president for pardoning the people who violently attacked the Capitol building. So please forgive me if I don't believe a word of any of it. This isn't about gotcha politics. It's about credibility, or rather the lack of credibility on the other side, because they constantly say one thing and do something else. So I urge a yes vote on my amendment, and I yield back.
Is there any further discussion on
Madam Chair, I fail to see how that amendment is germane to this rule.
And Madam Chair, we are the Rules Committee, and we routinely waive the rules of germaneness and make things in order.
This is about defense appropriations and crypto legislation.
Well, then you could vote no on it.
Mr. Scott, unfortunately, it is germane. Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
Madam Chair.
Ms. Leisure Fernandez, you recognize.
Madam Chair, the Epstein files concern issues of abuse of women and abuse of children. You know, as the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus, you often see me raising issues of we need to address this. And not only that, but Republicans and the MAGA world have said they want to know about this. Your constituents want to know. So the question is, why are they not just releasing them? And I think it's a simple thing to do, and you're going to be asked to vote whether you require the release. That's going to be a simple vote. Will you require the release? Is there anything that needs to be hidden? If there isn't, then just release the files. Silence those who would question it. So every Republican on this committee should be able to easily vote yes. And with that, Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Leisure Fernandez. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question's on the amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. No. In the opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment's not
Madam
agreed
Chair, I'm
to.
kind of shocked by that. I will ask for a roll call.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mrs. Fishbach? No. Mrs. Fishbach, no. Mr. Norman? Yes. Mr. Norman, aye. Mr. Roy? Mrs. Houchin? Mrs. Houchin, no. Mr. Langworthy? Mr. Langworthy, no. Mr. Scott? Mr. Scott, no. Mr. Griffith? Mr. Griffith, no. Mr. Jack?
No.
Mr. Jack, no. Mr. McGovern?
Aye.
Mr. McGovern, aye. Ms. Scanlon? Ms. Scanlon, aye. Mr. Neguse? Mr. Neguse, aye. Ms. Ledger Fernandez? Ms. Ledger Fernandez, aye. Madam Chair?
No.
Madam Chair, no.
The clerk will report the total.
5 yeas, 7 nays.
The noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to. And I think most of us believe what's appropriate will be released when it is time for the president to release it.
Well, Madam
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have another,
That nothing would stay hidden. And yet the moment a simple, straightforward vote arrived, a vote that required nothing more than saying, yes, release the records, the same voices who demanded transparency suddenly stepped back. The shift was so abrupt it stunned the room. It all started when McGovern introduced his amendment, a clean request directing the Attorney General to preserve and release the Epstein files. No loopholes, no delays, no complicated conditions, just a clear demand for disclosure. And for a moment, it felt like history might finally shift. After all, this wasn't coming out of nowhere. Bondi herself had once gone on national television claiming those very files were on her desk right now. The wording was unmistakable. The urgency sounded real. And Patel had insisted he'd reveal the full weight of everything that happened. Even the president's own inner circle treated the release like a moral obligation. They said the people deserved the truth. They framed the files as a shadow hanging over the country that needed to be lifted. That's what made the reversal so jarring. Because when McGovern put the amendment forward, he wasn't recycling old political talking points. He was throwing their own words back at them, their own promises, their own declarations about transparency. He reminded the committee that Bondi publicly said she physically had the files. He reminded them that Patel insisted the FBI was hiding information. He reminded them that even the president's own son said there was no reason to protect those scumbags, demanding the entire list be shown immediately. Those statements didn't come from opponents or critics. They came from inside the same political machine, now telling everyone to move on. And that is where the tension began to shift in the room. As soon as the amendment was introduced, you could sense the discomfort. What had once been a rallying cry suddenly became something to tiptoe around. Explanations were vague. Justifications were thin. Some members muttered about procedural issues. Others tried to argue it wasn't the right venue. But the Rules Committee routinely bends its own guidelines whenever it wants to push something through. Everyone in that room knew the rules weren't the real barrier. What mattered was the implications. Because releasing the Epstein files wouldn't just reveal a list of names. It would expose every network, every enabler, every person who used their power to protect someone who preyed on vulnerable people for years. And the moment you open that door, you don't control who gets pulled into the light. McGovern didn't hold back. He called out the inconsistency directly. How promises made on camera suddenly dissolved the moment accountability required action. He pointed out how credibility becomes meaningless when leaders repeatedly vow one thing and do the opposite. And he wasn't just talking about this issue. He highlighted a larger pattern: commitments not kept, values reversed, and rhetoric that collapses when pressure arrives. Because the Epstein files aren't just paperwork. They represent decades of unanswered questions, hidden connections, and survivors waiting for closure. When powerful people insist transparency is coming, then block it when the moment arrives, what message does that send to survivors? What message does that send to the country? Then came the vote. Quick, blunt, and revealing. The no votes rolled in from members who had previously aligned themselves with the loudest calls for disclosure. The same people who once declared that every name should be exposed now insisted the time wasn't right. The shift wasn't subtle. It was sharp, immediate, and public. And it left McGovern stunned enough to request a roll call. One by one, the names were read. One by one, the votes landed. And when the count was announced, the room felt heavier. The amendment failed. The files would stay sealed. And the explanation? That what's appropriate will be released when it is time. That line, when it is time, hit harder than anything else. Because who decides when the time is right? The survivors? The public? Or the same people who just chose to block disclosure? Ledger Fernandez stepped in next, reminding everyone that these files aren't abstract political tokens. They contain evidence of abuse against women and children. Evidence that survivors have spent years begging to have recognized. evidence that the public was promised repeatedly. She reframed the question in the simplest possible way. If there's nothing to hide, why not release it immediately? Let the truth silence the speculation. Let the facts settle the debates. Let justice run its course. That argument wasn't emotional manipulation. It was the moral core of the entire fight. Because avoiding release doesn't make the questions disappear. It amplifies them. It fuels suspicion. It confirms the belief many people already have that when the powerful are threatened, transparency gets buried. And when you combine that with the sudden shift in tone from figures who once demanded openness, the contradictions become impossible to ignore. Bondi saying the files were literally on her desk didn't get erased just because the vote failed. Patel claiming the FBI was hiding the list doesn't disappear because a procedural excuse gets thrown out. These statements created expectations. Expectations now clashing with silence. Even the public has felt the shift. Rumors online have grown louder, speculating about why the tone changed so suddenly. Some claim political pressure behind closed doors. Others suggest fear of backlash from wealthy donors or influential allies. None of these claims are proven, but the absence of transparency is exactly what fuels speculation. Reports claim that certain officials worry about the chaos that could erupt if every name became public. Others argue that releasing everything at once could expose people far outside the political sphere, celebrities, financiers, foreign individuals. Again, these are unverified claims, but that's the point. Without transparency, speculation fills the vacuum. And beyond all the rumors and theories lies the part too many people overlook: the survivors. The individuals whose lives were shattered while powerful figures looked the other way. Many have waited most of their adult lives to see accountability. Many have spoken into microphones, into courtrooms, into interviews, trying to reclaim a truth that was stolen from them. When elected officials say transparency is coming, survivors hold on to that. And when those officials then reverse course, the betrayal lands deeply. Because every delay feels like another dismissal. Every blocked vote feels like another door slammed shut. Every excuse feels like an attempt to protect someone who doesn't deserve protection. This brings us to the deeper crisis: credibility. How does a government ask the public for trust when it repeatedly breaks its own promises? When leaders say they'll protect programs, then cut them. When they say they'll reduce debt, then increase it. When they claim to honor law enforcement, then refuse to display something as basic as a plaque for officers who risk their lives. These examples aren't random. They form a pattern. A pattern where words sound powerful until action is required. And the blocked release of the Epstein files fits into that pattern with unsettling precision. It's not about partisan battles. It's about a larger question. What does it take for truth to matter more than comfort? For justice to outweigh political convenience? Because this isn't just a vote. It's a mirror, a reflection of how power protects itself, how transparency becomes negotiable, how survivors get pushed behind closed doors in favor of procedural delays, and how quickly bold promises are forgotten when consequences approach. The people in that room heard the pleas for transparency. They heard the reasoning. They heard their own past statements being read back to them, and still chose to keep the files sealed. That choice speaks louder than any press release ever could. What happens next is uncertain. Some say the files will eventually come out. Others believe they'll never see daylight. Reports suggest outside pressure is building. Activists, survivors, journalists, all demanding clarity. And the more officials delay, the more people ask why. What is really in those files? Who benefits from keeping them hidden? And why does transparency always seem to be postponed when the powerful are involved? This moment is a test of whether accountability still has a place in the system, whether survivors can trust the institutions meant to protect them, whether promises made publicly can be honored when the stakes rise, and whether the truth, whatever it may be, can break through the resistance of those who prefer silence. If you care about transparency, justice, and holding power accountable, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Because this story isn't over, and the next chapter might be the one that finally forces the truth into the light.